Take two. Um, let's take a minute and talk about my testimony. That's what this video is going to be about. Um, I'll try to remember things and in the proper order. A lot of times I'll forget things and remember them down the road when I get talking. Mosquitoes. Um, anyway, so I was raised an atheist, believed all the atheisms, and believed everything we were taught in school to be mostly scientific and true. I loved watching National Geographics and any kind of documentaries or whatever all the time. Filled my brain with them. And all that millions of years stuff that they spew constantly, which is all just a religion. So, what did I really enjoyed string theory when it came out. It explained a lot because I always knew that there was a spirituality to man, but could never really put my finger on what it was or whatever. I tried to say that it was the universe had its own consciousness that blah blah blah, and it's like, well, that's God, obviously, and the universe as you see it in that heliocentric universe having its own consciousness and whatever. That's a way bigger jump of faith into believing that there's somebody or something outside of us, outside of our system, that created it, that can control it to some extent, you know. Obviously, he's not going to control our day-to-days, but he can control the storyline as it goes through, for the most part. Or well, he controls it fully, but I mean, he's letting free will do its thing as well, right? Because what's the point of making life if you don't give it the free will? And then if we were to know him in the physical, it takes away from the using your own free will to discern what the universe is and stuff. Because if you knew him in the physical, it would take away from your free will because you'd actually see him and you'd know his rules were real rules to live by, you know. You'd look at him and say, oh, look, there's God. I gotta do what he says because he'll squash me like a bug. So that's why atheists, that's why he doesn't show himself and works in mysterious ways and all that stuff. Anyway, I went away to college. I took 3D game design. I was a big pervert. I wanted to make a vibrator that you could control with a keyboard, so that when you were having internet sex with people, you could make their dildo perform different actions with different keys, and they could also do the same with a porta pussy or whatever for you, and so that way you could be a little bit more in control of what's happening to your partner or whatever. Anyway, I ended up finding a documentary about the age of the Earth and real science. So it explained that the geologic time scale is the go-to for Earth aging science, and anyway, and it's based off circular reasoning and is only found in like less than 20% of archaeological digs, which means it's found in less than 1% of the Earth in the proper order, and that it's also found in the wrong order 80% of the time on archaeological digs. So that isn't a rule. That's not, if it's wrong 80% of the time, then it's not something that you're going to base your science off of. But that's what our science is based off of. and then they age the rocks by the fossils, and they age the fossils by the rocks, which is circular reasoning, makes no sense. And they actually have nothing to age the earth with, except for when they drill into glaciers, and I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, so they had this geologic time scale, and then when you carbon date, radioactive date, radiometric date, any of those other dating forms, you take a carbon date something, a rock, and then you carbon date something from the geologic time scale, and if they're the same, then you say, okay, they're the same age. But you always got to refer back to the geologic time scale for all earth aging science, except for when you drill into glaciers. And then when they drill into glaciers, they make this assumption that every layer in the ice is like a tree. It counts as a year. If you live anywhere where there's snow and ice, you know that's bullshit, because I've had to dig my boat out of the ice in the spring because I wanted to go boating, and the snow wasn't gone yet, and had to actually dig out what I could, and then wait like a month and come back and dig through the next layer of ice, and then come back a couple weeks later and dig through the next layer of ice. There was multiple layers just formed here in the Maritimes in one winter. So obviously on glaciers it's more than that, but anyways, a guy went and dug up some World War II planes that were abandoned on a glacier for 50 years, and he had to go through thousands of layers that were formed in a 50-year span, and which proved our oldest glacier to be 4,000 years old, thereabouts. We have a term called desertification, proved our oldest desert's around 4,000 years old. We have a book called the Bible, says that Noah's flood was about 4,000 years ago. Everything's lining up scientifically with the Bible, not with their stupid science that they drive down your throat when you're in elementary school, which just goes to show you that it's not. Right in the teacher's edition, it says billions of years. Make sure to stress this point to the children over in the sidebar to the teacher. That's full indoctrination that teacher's reading and doing to these poor kids, and the teacher knows it. They're going to burn in hell for that. I feel bad for the teachers. Really, really, really do, especially the ones that know better and aren't doing anything about it. You know, at least some of them can kind of claim ignorance. But if you have any kind of education at all, and you see through this bullshit, and then you still teach to these kids and destroy their faith in God, it's not going to be good. You better hope you get punished for some of that sin right here on earth, because if it's all up there on God's terms, it's going to be a bad punishment. Anyway, so found out it was all lies and bullshit and moved on. I became a Christian, sort of. I didn't really know the spiritual part of Christianity at that time, but I understood the scientific part, and I was willing to admit that there was more science to the Bible than there was in the textbooks and in the National Geographic shows and all that stuff. They mix science in with all that stuff, but they throw in their indoctrination and their lies too, and they mix it all together to make it look like it's real. Anyway, I got to get away from that subject because it bugs me. The next phase of my life, I guess, I ended up having a son, and but I still wasn't right spiritually. And when my fiance got pregnant, she flipped and like changed who she was. She was best friends with my sister, loved my mom, hung out with my family all the time. She flipped right over to the point that she said even my niece and nephew, which were like, I think my niece was 11 and my nephew was 9, she said they were bad people and she didn't want them around our kid, and my whole family were horrible and she didn't want me to go around them and all this stuff. Cut me right off from them all. And I still had my pervertness at that time, so I was still looking at porn and all that stuff, which put a big strain on our relationship as well. And anyway, we didn't make it because of all that. And whatever. That sucked. Anyway, so then I got this broken heart syndrome, and I did a bunch of stupid, sinful shit. I went off sleeping with like married women and stuff like that, and doing all this stupid shit, trying to protect my own heart from ever being broken again. I figured I could have rotating girls and do all this stupid shit that I always knew was wrong growing up. But I figured, what the hell, I was wrong about everything. My whole world was shoved upside down. Anyway, so I figured I'll try to be this person that I'm clearly not. But anyway, did that for about a year, maybe more, and clearly it wasn't me. So I shut that down, and then went back to just being myself. Kept studying, but I kept studying science and not studying the spirit. I kept leaving out the important parts of the Bible for a long time. It wasn't until probably around 2017 that I started to really start to see spiritual sides, and then in probably 2018 before I opened my mind up to it totally, and then started to put myself into more position for blessing. I was already unknowingly doing that by, I accepted Christ, and I got baptized 6 years ago now. It'll be 7 years here soon. But I got baptized as well, which really changed me. But before that, I was, see, I told you I get it all screwed up. Before that, I was actually doing the sleep around thing. Then I got off of that, and then I started going to bars and stuff. I ended up dating this stripper for a while. That was really weird. She was like 15 years younger than me, or 14 years younger than me at the time, and she still is. Anyway, so we used each other, I guess, and then that fizzled away. But at that time, I had been celibate for a year, and I hadn't looked at any porn, and I hadn't masturbated at all, and I was horrible at sex all of a sudden. So then I got this stupid thing in my head that I had to be better at sex again. So I went around trying to sleep with people just to see if I could do it right. Anyways, fucking dumb. That's when I got baptized. Shortly after that year, and I did like another 2 years of stupidity, and then got baptized, and at that time I became celibate, and I haven't had sex since. It's been a long time, and got away from all that sin, and porn and all that stuff too. But anyway, after I got baptized, well, it was before I got baptized. I actually prayed about it. I was really starting to turn on when I got baptized to the Spirit, and really learning about it. Anyway, and then I found my church, and Flat Earth Church. That makes all kinds of sense. The pastor's amazingly smart. Anyway, and a historian and a lawyer and all kinds of stuff. He was the district attorney or whatever for a while. Anyway, he showed me a lot about God, and he got me onto the Jewish books and Hebrewism and stuff like that. So I started to pray to God that I wanted to know him on a personal level. I wanted to try to understand who he was, how he thinks, all about him, right? Like, I wanted to know him as well as anybody has ever known him. And so that was great. He gave me so much knowledge, and he kept giving it to me. A couple times during getting knowledge, I actually learned things that were just too big for I can't think of any examples off my hand, but I mean, were just too much for my mind to handle at the time. So I had to I had to stop for like a week, 2 weeks at a time, just stop learning. But I always went back to it once I'd get my mind around it. Certain things, like people that are going to be lost forever, and there's no saving them. Certain people in your family or whatever, big thing to get over. Anyway, during all that, I ended up getting a mission call to walk out of this world. It was years ago now that I got the first call. I went for a walk and I just had this overwhelming feeling to just keep walking and never go back to my life. So at that point, I changed my life and moved into the city, got in a different apartment, got a different job, did all kinds of different changes to try to make myself comfortable in that life, but didn't work. So it was last year or whatever, I decided that I was going to do this, and been preparing for it for a year or so. COVID couldn't have worked out any better because it helped me to get the time to prepare and stuff. So here I am. I'm sure I left out a bunch of stuff that's important. I learned about blessings. And see, you're saved through grace. But then you see, because you can't save yourself with action. So once you're saved with grace, though, you can make yourself better through action. And in order for God to bless you, you have to prove to Him that you can withstand the blessing and the push from Satan that's going to come with that blessing. Because every blessing comes with a push. Satan doesn't want you to be blessed, so he's going to notice it and he's going to get pissed and he's going to do something, whatever he can, to smash you back. And you got to be ready, and he's going to try to hit you where your sin is, right? So with me, it'd be womenizing or whatever, right? Yeah, well, or drinking, or fast foods, or there's so many things, cigarettes, and so many things that I've quit and changed my life on. But the woman thing was a bad one, and porn. So through works, once you get into your works, then you can start to get your blessings, and then once you prove to God and to yourself that you're actually capable of withstanding and holding these blessings, and you put out jars, and I don't mean like put out jars, vessels, plant gardens, pick up jobs, go to work, help people, make videos, go sit on the street and play guitar, anything you can that he can try to bless you. But you gotta give him openings in order for him to bless you through those openings or whatever. So yeah, you can move into position for your blessings that way, and then there's a lot more to it. There's also being charitable, finding out who the real Hebrews are and trying to bless them, because whoever blesses the Hebrews is going to be blessed. But you want to bless the right people. Don't go sending money to Israel, because look at what the state of Israel is. Those aren't the real people, obviously, or there would be peace in Israel right now if they were the real people. The real people were taken away by ship for a 400-year slavery band. So taken by ship to a strange land, put into slavery for 400 years, bondage, whatever, second Egypt. Egypt means bondage. Egypt, the word, means slavery. So that's how you jump into your position. Now, obviously, for some people, you might not want to do what I did. I gave away everything I own, gave up my house and my apartment, and I'm just going to go on a faith walk and put my whole life in God's hands. But you don't want to do that. Most people, I had a calling for that. You want to listen to the signs and the omens and what's going on in your life and what's going on in the world, and really try to pay attention to what God says to you, and ask clear, definitive questions in your prayers, and make clear, definitive statements in your prayers as well, and you will come to understand what your calling is, and then push for it as hard as you can.